Well, welcome to today's ITAM Kitchen, the place where we have these conversations like around the kitchen table, like on the kitchen island. And we have the kind of talk where we're talking about friends. That's what it's all about. So welcome. For those who don't know me, my name is Bill, Mr. Bill. 30-year practitioner, asset management, public speaker for several years to several conferences, things like that. And I decided to say, okay, let's go live. Let's make this happen. Let me switch the screen real quick. Mm-hmm. And the one thing you learn when you do live things and you go specifically with production is you want as much automation as possible. And I'm still working on some of that. Just be for the imperfections key, but that's also what makes it more fun. So being able to say, okay, how can we put that in place? But really, asset management, it's not talking about all the production activities. This is actually for provide visibility in community, right? It's helping do that next step. This is actually kind of a little bit of an extension. We have the IT management co-op that happens. It's an entire community, et cetera. This is kind of an extension of that. And we put this, we've been going live. There's a little experiment that we've had for going on a little, oh my gosh, 6 weeks. And it's been having a blast. The following is going great. The dialogue's happening. The following is amazing. And that interaction is phenomenal from that standpoint. But I also have two guests. So kind of a regular guest we have here, which is great because we all love to share information, right? So I have Rob Collins and Deanna Henniger here as well. I'll let them introduce themselves, and then we're going to kick right into our topic because today AI is our world, and we're going to talk about how AI can help our world and make that happen for some of the, I'll say the mundane tasks. What can we do to some of the remedial tasks? And say, okay, how can we leverage it? So Deanna, you want to introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll flip over to Rob, and then we'll kick right off.
Sure. I'm Deanna Henniger, and I've been working with ITSM and ITAM for over 30 years and thoroughly enjoy it. That's why I like to talk about it.
There you go. That's
awesome. Outstanding. And I'm Rob Collins. I'm an ITAM expert with 30 plus years of experience between the military, government service, and private consulting practice. And familiar with and have worked within the worlds of IT, ITAM, IT operations, and bridging over to all of those other supporting functions like purchasing, cataloging, disposal, etc. So here to serve you.
And with that, we're going to dive right in because this topic, when we talk about AI in today's AI world, there's lots of things we can discuss. And when we were wrapping up, we were kind of talking about this discussion for today, that the ask I made both of Rob and Deanna is like, you know what, think of 5 use cases each that we can leverage AI to actually get rid of some of the remedial tasks that we think of day to day. I mean, some of them may only be done by automation. Okay, we can talk about that. But let's think about from the true practitioner. And even we're all seasoned practitioners, right? And not saying we couldn't come with hundreds or thousands of these, but let's drill in to say, okay, what can we start with? Because we may not make it through even these 10. That's okay. Because the whole idea is let's talk about examples, how we can help make ourselves more strategic, more thoughtful, how we go that next step. Because that's the part that, at least for me, I've seen a struggle with. The seasoned practitioners, we've been around, okay, yeah, you want to further automate, et cetera. But honestly, with some of the outsourcing activities that are happening today, I'm just going to be candid, right? And I used to work for outsourcing companies myself, right? I'll be candid. They're more interested in the human interaction than they are the automation. And that leaves also for human error. I'm not saying we should not employ more people. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying more about how can we think more strategically and leverage AI to help us be that. Help AI raise that level, because when it comes to asset management, we're talking about high level type of discussions. That's our world. Now, we also have to start with the foundational data. Again, we probably have some of the examples there. But the whole idea is we want to raise that level of awareness for management, leadership. It could be a director, it could be a VP, it could be a CIO, a CTO, it could actually be the CEO, depending if it's on board discussions, right? And being able to say, okay, here's what I knew, here's what I know about my environment, things like that. So let me change the screen one more time. Let's see if I can get this, I have an idea here. And then we're going to dig right into this. I don't like that.
It's just trying to focus, I think.
I have a different problem with that. It can't see the entire screen. So we're going to give it a shot. We're going to work through it and make it happen. That's the idea here, right? So let's dig into this. So with the dialogue, let's talk about what's the hot topic, and we're going to do. We'll get one from Deanna, one from Rob. Let's figure out what's the top item that they thought of that AI can assist with, and let's just dig into it. Let's see where it goes. And like I said, we're going to shoot with these. We only may make it through one. That's great. Okay, we'll have additional discussion. That's great, right? But let's hit that key topic, because maybe it's also very aligned as far as where their thoughts are. And by the way, there is no pre-scripting to this conversation. I'm just going to clear that out. This is a live discussion. You're seeing it real time. We're like folks talking around a kitchen island at a party and saying, you know what, have you thought about this? I know those things we don't talk about in our parties is things like ITAM, right? Mm-hmm. But the whole idea is we're amongst friends. We have that collaboration and saying, well, that's curious. Let's figure out if we can find out more. And that's the idea behind it. So from there, let's just dig into it. Deanna, I'm going to write this down as we take, and I'm going to take notes as we go. As you see me do on the whiteboard, that's the whole idea behind it. Digital boards are great in this part. We'll take notes as we go. Deanna, what's that hot topic, or what's the number one item that you thought of that AI can assist with?
One of the things I've seen, if you have AI on, when you have a meeting, it will give you a synopsis of the meeting, as well as with your email threads, so that you don't have to read all the way through your email. If somebody's not taking notes during the meeting, you have the meeting notes in front of you afterwards.
I like it. I like it. Perfect. And Rob, on your side, what came to mind?
Well, it's interesting because I've got some use cases in mind, but one of them, though, that kind of stands out is to build or utilize existing AI agents in order to do the mundane tasks, for instance, right? So ideally, like, you could actually have your AI engineers build you that agent, right, that exists solely as an AI to perform a variety of those tasks for meetings, emails, etc. So we'll touch on some of that too as well. But then at a really high level, the first thing that came to my mind was predictive lifecycle management around your assets. You can utilize, you can leverage AI to do that. But a couple of, well, the first thing is, if you're out there and you're listening in the chat, put down your location, where you're coming to us from, where you're listening from, and then just to kind of add a little seasoning to that, let's give us a pain point, a major pain point that you have within the practice of ITAM or within IT that you'd love to hear a discussion on, right? That's it.
Yeah, it's not that I don't forget. It's not that I forget about the audience. Sometimes you forget about the prompting, right? That's the idea. So we help each other out here.
We're excited. We dive in. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, definitely put it in the chat there. If you haven't hooked up to YouTube on that part, as far as the YouTube channel, please do. Absolutely put it out there too. Let me give you a link on that.
That's right.
Make sure I press the right button, because ITAM Kitchen is where it is. This is the place it is. I was actually just talking with a practitioner, just a little plug on this. Somebody I've known for many years, very process-centric type of individual, phenomenal part. Actually going to be a guest at some point, right over the next month. Oh boy, the next month we're starting to get it. We're already thinking of topics. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. You think we've had fun so far? Not even close to where we're about to go at all. Yeah. But anyways, he was talking about, I was like, oh my gosh, you're going live. He's like, yeah, absolutely. Let's just have that chat. He goes, nobody does that. It's like, exactly. I do. We do. We have the dialogue. We go that next step. That's what makes it fun, exciting, and go that next step. That's the whole idea behind the ITAM Kitchen. So sign up on YouTube, because that's our primary place. We're going to do linked as long as we can, as long as LinkedIn plays well. We know LinkedIn's owned by Microsoft, and Microsoft sometimes doesn't like to play with others and other sandboxes. So we'll just leave it at that. So we'll work through that. But let's get back to our topic. If you have questions, please put the questions in the chat as well, or the additional contributions. Make it happen. Okay, so our two first ones was meeting synopsis. I think that's great. Predictive lifecycle management. Everybody talks about that as far as how can we do that? And there's lots of different facets to that. Let's dig in the meeting synopsis, because I think this is actually being done by a lot of companies today, right? It's very common. Okay, like I said, work on the automation, try not to go off screen. I'm failing, but there you go. We got the imperfection here. But the meeting synopsis, the whole idea here is, okay, how are you listening to it? And it's actually listen to that conversation at that point. The best of intentions, you're absolutely right, Deanna, on this. The best of intentions are there to be able to synopsis and put it in place, absolutely. But there's a little caveat behind that, right? And what would that caveat comes to mind with meeting synopsis? What do you think about that?
One of the things I would think is that sometimes it may not think that's what's important to you. It may just think what's important to it or to AI, and may miss a few items. But what I've seen in business is that it actually says, Bob said this, Judy said that, and it literally gives you the whole list, but it may not tie it all back together again.
Okay, so it's focused conversation. And I'm really not trying to do a pro con, but there is a major part behind this when you start doing this.
Yes.
Meeting synopsis, because it's very critical, but there's also security concerns.
Yeah.
There are.
Right. That's what comes to mind for me. That I've really been part of conference calls that, okay, want to leverage the AI to do that. It's like Teams calls and things like that because it's built in, right? But there's also, you have to ask for permission, right? Ask for permission in that conversation. And I will say 75% of the time, it's probably closer to 80 actually, that I've seen within the last year plus with that, customers will not allow you to listen to put in.
Right.
Right. You absolutely can do this. If you have meeting notes, etc., it totally can do that synopsis. But from recording a conversation, that's the one thing you want to be careful of, right?
There's some tips on that.
And their permission. So let's dig into that a little bit, because I want just everyone to kind of be aware. It's kind of outside the scope of asset management, but it's something we need to be aware as practitioners if we're going down this path.
Well, it's definitely pertinent.
Yep. Well,
Yeah.
we used to use it when we were doing our project management meetings. And so it did help later on, said who said what, this way we can make sure everybody's still on target, or who wasn't on target. But you were right about the security end of it, because we talked about almost everything, and we got the synopsis. Oh no, my manager got the synopsis later on. We didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
It's one of those things too. It's a best practice, right? As soon as you're going to start a meeting and you intend to record, let's say for note-taking purposes, utilizing and leveraging AI tools, the first thing you do is you go around the room and you ask for consent. You know, that's what you do. It's best practice. Plus, it also makes it so that that trust is established ahead of time. Now, of course, if we're going to be talking about proprietary information, any of those topics that would be considered protected, then now you've got a little bit of room to work within, and some restrictions, I should say, really. If it's going to be a conversation about proprietary information, it's typically going to be a closed door meeting, and then you can do that. You can restrict access to the meeting synopsis and anything that's recorded, and that includes anything that comes back from AI. And so typically this happens, especially in environments where there's like engineering involved, or there's trade, or there's any of those things that fall within that intellectual property that needs to be respected and protected. So you start with that, and then typically it's silence is how will you say, it's interpreted as consent. But then you may also want to go around the room if it's particularly sensitive and say, I want to raise a hand, or I want a yay from each person. If there are any objections, give me a nay, and then let's move on from there, and we'll just go to paper notes. It makes it a little bit tedious because now you've got to do more, but it respects the customer, it respects the people in the room.
And keep in mind where this permission's coming from. We've actually been doing it for centuries. We just have not had to apply it to ourselves. If you look at the broadcasting, anything you see in the media, things like that, every time you get a quotation, you record somebody, etc., there's always permission being asked, always, right?
Yes.
But that's now being, because we've said, okay, we can now broadcast like everyone else. We're probably all under the same rules, right? And that's also important to look at the corporate policy you have for whether sessions, whether it can be recorded or not. For example, if it's government content, if it's government focused, you need to make sure you're on a correct platform. There's a whole security part if they're allowed to record conversations and some of that, right? Every government agency is going to be a little different level of security, who can be in the room. That's a whole slew of things. But you need to, back to the corporate world, you have to review what your corporate policy is when leveraging AI. And that's kind of where I was going with that, right?
Yeah. And I'm looking off screen. Just a quick note, I'm looking off screen occasionally because I'm looking for comments coming into the chat.
Oh, it's perfect. Perfect. I appreciate that. You'd be surprised the setup I have here right in front of it. It's like, it's insane, but it's awesome. It's great. Moving forward.
Yeah.
Because with meeting synopsis, the other part is when you start talking about the core policies, and that's to record, right? To record.
Yeah.
Because it's extremely important, and I'm glad we dove into this because I didn't think about it. This is actually extremely critical. I didn't even come to mind first thing. That's why we're also collaborating.
Yeah.
This is one of the first things that AI says it can help with.
Yeah.
However, it's one of the first things corporations will say in their policy you're not allowed to do. Right. I don't say it's a negative, it's just more about making that happen. So the question is, how can I still leverage AI to do a synopsis of meetings? Take good meeting notes, right? Means you do a handwritten. you may have take notes on the computer the way just the old school, absolutely, because you can still do that. So don't think you can. It's totally going to say, okay, I can't use AI at all. Think about, okay, what's alternative ways to look at it? Put the notes in there. It's like, I just need to summarize it because here's my meeting notes because I'm a bulletized kind of guy. Here's the bulletized what I capture from it. I'm usually pretty good at it. Actually, I found, okay, being a consultant for like I have, I can be facilitating a meeting. This actually happened. I have a note taker. My notes are more accurate than the note takers.
Sometimes.
Yeah, which happens, right? That's not negative. Just we get accustomed to it because when you start doing that, you start taking notes. To your point, the synopsis, you put an AI, you know what to read my chatter. You can put it in the right context. You can put it in the right tone. You can help that as well. That's why AI is great for it. And we can leverage some of my comments I just made to say, okay, how do we put our outputs? Same thing, right? It's a good practice on that side from a meeting note. So I just want to put up the focus of the conversation, and that's a great point, is the focus, it might be one side versus two, but this is also where you might say, if you're not recording the meeting, like right now we're being recorded because that's part of the production and we're going to leverage this in many different forms, right?
Yeah.
That's one thing. But if you're in a meeting, your focused conversation is going to be about you, right? Your perspective. But you may also ask, when at the end of the meeting, if you're taking it by notes and you're not able to record it, ask for notes from other individuals and leverage that when you combine your notes, right? And also say who it's from. Because AI is actually really good about helping merge and better align the topics. It's actually really good at it, better than my brain, I'll put it that way, right? Because again, we all have skewed views, and that's the important part. No, but I love that we dug into this because it's extremely important. It's important, again, to understand both sides of the fence. Even for recording conversations, again, it's no different. It's kind of like wiretapping. Everyone's always talked about that back in the day, which we don't think about wiretapping the same way anymore because everything's electronic. Trust me, everything's recorded, but that's a whole separate discussion, a whole different tangent. But when you think about your meeting synopsis, it absolutely can help with that, help that dialogue. It also help determine, okay, what's your next steps, right? It can help drive those next steps. Even if you have next steps defined, it might say, have you thought about X, Y, and Z?
Mm.
It provides that, I would say, the non-human element from the logical side. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. That's a good point. Or maybe it's a follow-up email or say, for next steps, guys, we need another 30 minutes real quick to talk about this one topic that's important to us. Don't worry about the entire meeting. 30 minutes, maybe 15. Let's put a bow on this, let it go away, and then we're done with the topic. You never know what's going to help the fun, right? But those next steps are also critical. Anything else on meeting synopsis? Because that was great. That was a great start, right?
I'd like to pull back for a second and look from a perspective of those security and and confidentiality concerns, right? There are tools out there that it's known they farm and they train off of user data. So the prompts that you put in, anything that's pulled up. So the question is whether or not stuff in the analysis is going to be picked up by a third party outside. There are some tools which I've been given a lot of information on and high confidence that it can be used within organization. There's a great degree of trust and protection involved. And then there are other tools, most of the free ones, for instance, where they are going to collect everything that you put in. So don't put in customer data. Don't put in anything unless it's anonymized. And then even if it's anonymized, you may want to consider like how you're leveraging a given tool, or shop for tools and start leveraging AI in order to determine who you should even consider out there to act as the AI agent in this case. So definitely keep those things in mind.
Let's expand upon that a little bit, because I thought there's two sides to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about the public view, saying you're using open source type of AI technologies,
right?
Right, making that happen. There is also, if you have a corporate version that stays within your environment, it may never get exposed to the outside world.
That's
so
correct.
Keep in mind, again, it's not the policies out there. Those other views, absolutely, right? And Microsoft, Google, they all have those as well. So keeping it private, where it does not get shared, I'll say, with the outside world. I know when I was using it myself, you could do it out there, but you had to it wouldn't go to the internet. The internet function was turned off, so you could not search the internet on that
Good
side.
point.
But it had its own library, so it said, okay, tell me the information you had. It could search everything inside the organization I was working for. Absolutely no problem there. Anything outside the walls, outside the firewall, it was not allowed to do. So it depends on your setup on that side. But that's also where we didn't have to worry about anonymizing as much because of that. You just never know. But I just wanted to say there are those technologies are currently available to help you if you're going down that path. No, that's a good point, because that security concern is extremely critical. Again, the customer may not allow you to even go this far. Now, can you use? I don't want to go down there. There's other things that come to mind, but I think it takes us down the wrong rabbit hole.
That could be a whole other session.
Exactly, yeah. Because in security, the do's and don'ts, I really don't want to dig into that too much, except for us to be aware of it. That's kind of where my brain was going, and that's where you need to work with your security operations team, work with your corporate team to understand the policies of how to use AI internally. Totally leverage your organization for that, because they may say, oh, here's the policy and that's it. It's like, that doesn't work for me. Be honest with them, because you need to work with that inside there. As a discipline, we have to follow whatever those limitations are, those restrictions are. But no, I like it. Perfect. Is there anything else we want to add to the meeting synopsis?
Got other topics we can go into.
Play.
You have one comment that came in through LinkedIn, for instance. This was made by Remy A, right? he loves this. Finally, a way to stop drowning in the spreadsheets and make ITAM something that's strategic. So we could get into that as another topic, like utilizing AI to draw the data out of the spreadsheets with some caveats, of course. So we could list that as another topic if you want. You can respond directly to one, and I'll jot it down as well because it's a good. It's a good one.
Well, I think it also gives you predictive lifecycle management. That's great
Yeah.
compliment into that, right? Because with predictive lifecycle management, you're trying to figure out, okay, how are you leveraging the data? Who's it being leveraged from? What are those current projects underway? What are the needs and requirements? That's what comes to mind for there. And actually, let me just add this whole different screen. We'll move this over here.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I think this will totally consume us on that topic plus more.
Good.
Because that, we'll put that as the first bullet: consumption of data. Right? Is my voice still coming through? Is it still coming through pretty close?
You're good.
Okay. We'll say spreadsheets.
Sure.
I just can't spell today, but that's a whole different story. I want to read my chicken scratch. Okay. Because when you start thinking about this, what kind of spreadsheet are we talking about? What comes to mind when we talk about consumption of spreadsheets? Deanna, any thoughts?
Well, pretty much now we're not able to use them in an audit. They really want us to use a database recording as opposed to just spreadsheets, because spreadsheets can be manipulated a lot easier than having data inside your database.
Yeah.
And then you can't bring your spreadsheets to court anymore or to an audit. They have to be electronically proven. So
You have that.
discovery.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. You have to, as far as your ongoing storage, but from an extraction for creating reports, things like that, you can still use spreadsheets for that, right? I would go down that path, but you're absolutely right. You do have restrictions on when you can use spreadsheets, absolutely. But if you're talking about consumption of spreadsheets, what comes to mind here to actually help you with that?
Are they pulling the correct data that you want? Because data leads to knowledge. And if it's not pulling the data out correctly, if there are two different federated databases, they may not come over correctly. The field labels may be different.
Mm-hmm. So we'll say the
Formatting up.
And this could be the data, the spreadsheet, how to look at date codes. There's all sorts of things, right? Welcome to data scrubbing. Okay, there we go.
Also, sometimes your data.
If you haven't received a PhD in data scrubbing, you're about to.
So also, if your data is longer than your field, you're going to get that number that looks like a scientific notation with the little e. And I spent a lot of time trying to get the scientific notation back into data.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those things where, like, a lot of people, right, a lot of organizations, they start with what they have, right? And so that's going to be spreadsheets, right?
Yep.
It's done an amazing amount of work based on spreadsheet collected data, but there are some certain caveats, though, right? And let's pull back to the 3 C's, right? I believe that there are 4, right? But the completeness, right, the correctness and the compliance of that data leads to the 4th C, which is your confidence in it. The moment that you've saved and closed that spreadsheet, changes keep happening. So it's stale. It's stale. It's never going to be fresh. You always date timestamp your result because that's what you're showing up with. And in a lot of cases, for instance, in an audit situation, it doesn't matter. They're still going to want to put their tools, that is to say, the publisher is still going to want to put their tools in place and do their own inventories, right? And that's going to be that table argument that you're going to have, right? But in the case of this, for instance, right, what you do have is you do at least have some form of an inventory, right? And so long as you adhere to some of those other best practices, then you can make some valuable use of this in that you can figure out the age, for instance, of asset. Let's just assume an example, right? You pull a baseboard report across all hard assets in your organization, right? So you, depending on how you do it, right? And there's lots of ways. Let's just assume today we're going to do a method I pulled a long time ago. You're going to basically push a PowerShell query. It's going to go to the devices and it's return baseboard information. It's not necessarily going to give you any of the purchasing related stuff, but it is going to give you anything that can be read electronically and queried. And then from there, you can determine the age of the asset. You can, through other functions, determine whether it's in or out of warranty, which leads to another set of decisions you can make with it. You can look at existing versions of things that are on board that hardware to interface with InfoSec to see whether or not you can continue to support it, which then drives yet another decision around PC refresh, laptop refresh, etc. And so here's just a few ways that you do this, and these are all predictive lifecycle elements, right? At some point, you know it's going to die and it's going to go out of service. So this information drives that. At some point, you can also examine your incoming stuff, the purchasing, if you've done that right. If you can see when, how many of what kind of unit was purchased throughout, let's say, a year. Or if you're ambitious, let's go over a 3-year lifespan or a 5-year lifespan for assets. You do that, then you can also help to determine to do the predictive analysis. When am I going to need to buy more hardware? Based on the policies that you have in place, you know it's going to be a 3-year, a 4-year, a 5-year refresh. Great, you can drive AI in that direction through good prompting and the use of those resources to say, hey, we expect that 5 years ago, we bought 100 laptops, and sure enough, they're definitely up for consideration. Do we extend their life? Do we charge them out and buy new assets to replace? All those other things, they come after that. But in order to get the data to make the determination, this is the place where you leverage AI and some really creative and constructive prompt engineering around this. And here's the other thing too, is like, for most folks, they jump in, they use AI, and they answer simple questions quickly, right? And then it's on you to do the due diligence. That 85% accuracy I talked about yesterday, yeah, you're going to run into that. It's just, it's a how you say, it's a product of the tool, or it's a property of the tool, right? So when you make those corrections and you've recorded your complete prompt engineering exercise, then you know now I can repeat this anytime I want. I can do it on the fly. I can do it every 3 months, 6 months, however many, right? Once a year is ideal, right? So
let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
So in your C's, I want to make sure I'm capturing this right.
Yeah.
Completeness plus
compliance and correctness. Yeah. And most of you that have run expensive tools, you know exactly where this comes from. If not, I'd be happy to answer questions.
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure that we're capturing some of the key points, because I think that's extremely critical, right? With everything we're doing. Right?
And it's industry.
A couple times, but we'll make sure. Yeah, I just want to make sure we get that. Because to your point, you have the data itself. You go down this path, and now let's talk about, okay, how are we leveraging it from? Again, it's garbage in, garbage out. That's kind of what you're looking at right here.
Right.
But where you can predictive lifecycle management, let's shoot for some KPIs or metrics that actually would be helped and automated here, right? Let's work with those examples. Let's be more specific. So what kind of what KPIs come to mind?
Age of the asset, right away. First thing, having done desktop support and distributed and set up computers across a 5,000 person agency before, and helping many other customers with their processes, age of asset and warranty dates are the first things that spring to mind, because they're what's going to drive purchasing decisions going forward.
I also think when you talk about discovery, right?
Yeah.
I'll say last discovered.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. How complete? How fresh? What's the freshness data pull?
Yep, absolutely.
Another one that comes to mind for me is a history of a product, such as if you did get a bad batch, Your
Yep.
incidents may not show you because one person's having a problem and they may not see across the board that 20 or 30 people have the exact same problem.
Yeah.
I'd be able to send AI, please go through my incident records and tell me how many XYZ PDQ have failed over a month or 2 months,
Great point.
and
Because
for the same reason.
that's another great
So you're
segue for one
talking
of
more
your
about incidents about the devices at that point, right?
incident management, problem management.
Problem management.
If you're using your ITS properly, all of that stuff should surface in reports that you can schedule 6 a.m.
We may know that we have a lot of incidences, but we may not put them together to realize we have a problem.
You could let AI do that.
Let AI do that.
Well, and the part I'll bring on this one, that may not be an asset management function, right? That may be more the service management.
Okay, so, all right.
It might be.
Well, if you have to rebuy,
I'm not saying they shouldn't complement,
Yeah.
right? And my point is
They do.
for the audience to realize you need to be working with the rest of the team to actually work with something like that. That
Yeah.
data may not be within your realm of expertise. That's where you're going to be
Yeah.
collaborative with that.
Absolutely.
So absolutely, it's important. I'm not saying it's not important. Absolutely, it's critical, right? We try to do this all the time. Okay, tell me what's wrong, or let's help you figure that out. And you might realize what happens here. They're not putting assets on the incident record.
Right.
Or the problem record, or the CIs, right? They may say, oh, the CI is there, but you're not talking about your asset management. It actually opens up a can of worms in a good way because it helps show alignment. And do it,
Right.
Yeah.
what this does here, puts a spotlight on it. Say, guys, really? Guys, gals, we need to do it. So that's the only thing I want to bring up here. Great point. I love it. But realize
Yeah.
it may morph into something even greater to help the entire organization. This is where your value add goes back to the company,
Yeah.
organization,
I
right?
guarantee it will.
Yeah, exactly. Every time. So great example. What else do we have for examples that come to mind here? We talked about a little bit. Well, let's say we said warranty, we said asset age. I'm going to put these in separate items here.
Yeah. That
can
incident
actually help
problem
with,
management point is big.
with asset receiving. Because what they're telling us to do now with AI is to take a picture of the barcodes and let AI figure out which ones are which. And this way you have a record of the picture in case there is a problem.
Okay.
And then having AI put it incorrectly.
Would you say inventory support?
Inventory supported, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
But also asset identification support.
Yep.
Um,
It's so on the physical side, you'd take a picture or you'd use a barcode scanner, or there'd be something where you walk in, identify the space, identify the asset, right?
Right.
So you got that relationship established. Yeah, and then from there, let it do what it does in order to bring
Yes.
back that information or run a comparison against all your purchasing.
Yes.
After all, discovery was in there because logging purchasing has just been a pain in the neck, and not very many folks I've encountered are doing it often enough, nor are they doing it, how you say, repeatably and with confidence.
Confidence, yeah.
That's why you crawl a network and you come back with all the devices that are plugged in. It's not going to tell you what's offline, but
Yep.
there should be a resource for that someplace. You should have a stock room.
Absolutely. And what I add to this was not just assets received, but also what's not received. That's also critical, right? So you know what's to be expected, or you also identify those POs because you're going to have open purchase orders. Easy to get away from. Totally easy. Now you have the status report. AI can help with this. And I'm not saying make that happen, but you now have that automation in place. This helps the finance team, procurement team, and yourself to say we're aligned. We're in alignment on this. Right?
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, so here's the real scenario that happens. You didn't receive it for whatever reason, right? Shipment got lost, whatever. It happens all the time, right?
There's a term for that.
Invoice comes in for that equipment anyways. Well, finance doesn't always talk to asset management team. We've learned about that. This helps have alignment. This also helps provide that check and balance for that three-way match, right? To put that in place. So I've just put that up as well. Inventory support, great. What else comes to mind? Because this is perfect.
The term is back order. I just wanted to put that
Oh,
out
back
there.
order, okay.
Yeah, anything's back order. I ordered 100, I only got 85. There's 15 on back order expected. So there. All right. So what are the KPIs? Is that the question?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
It could be operational, it could be procurement, it could be receiving, it could be disposal. There's all sorts of things that come to mind here because we're talking about life cycle. What are you able to predict, right?
Also in your RMA processes,
Yep.
return merchandise.
Okay.
Because you can't just return something until you call somebody and get permission to return it.
That's right. You usually get a number associated with that.
Yeah.
And then they acknowledge that. That should be part of the process of recording.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but a lot of these are examples of pointing AI at an information resource, database, sheet, etc., and then come back with the following based on my prompt engineering. And so that's true. So, and we are talking about life cycle.
Yeah, exactly. And what I'm saying, we could probably go for slides upon pages upon this, right? Lots of different KPIs. What this also drives, each one of these is driving us to take action.
It's added one up there. Let's call it percent ownership logged, right? Because that's another huge thing that I see with people all the time in the ITAM space, right? And that is, well, our big problem is we don't have app owner. We don't have the owner or the associate person assigned to this device. So you could point and you could let AI do the analysis of logged in users, right? And then from there, reference and push back to Azure or Active Directory for those that are still using it in order to determine who is the most likely person that this thing is assigned to, right? Or who is the most likely person who is the owner and of this particular, let's say, application, if you want to go in the software direction. So that's definitely a useful place to do that. And it's a huge complaint. It's probably one of the biggest ones right there. If you answered that for most customers, that would eliminate a lot of pain.
It also helps further refine how much the asset lifecycle is being tracked.
That's right.
What you're historizing, what you're looking at, whether you have history being turned on that, like who actually the user is for those assets, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes some environments say, I want to track I want to track every attribute being changed. Okay, you went down your system within a week, you'll do it. I've seen it done.
It's a heavy task that you definitely don't want to leave people.
Right.
That's definitely the best.
But it also helps you identify which attributes are extremely critical. And your criticality is important. That's kind of where you're going. For the last asset owner, and absolutely, from that standpoint. And that could be true for the receiving, that could be true for disposal. It could talk about what's going back to your, also I'd say for your finance reports, okay, because the last asset owners can tie back to your cost center, the department, so you're able to put chargebacks and things like that. Lots of opportunity there for you.
Yeah.
And you're having AI do this is great, phenomenal on that side, right? On that little life cycle management, because it just helps you better look at that information. Now, something you brought up earlier, Deanna, and I didn't capture, I don't think, right, is looking at asset anomalies. That's what you were talking about, right?
Right.
When you start collecting, you have this information, and just something doesn't look right. Now, keep in mind, gut feeling from the human perspective is going to be much different than what AI is looking at. AI is extremely logical, right? And you can put spot coding in there. It's still not going to be. It doesn't have the human element. I don't know how else to say it, right?
Yeah.
But I do want to say we're looking at asset anomalies, and asset anomalies could be what comes to mind for an asset anomaly?
You had a motherboard switch out.
Yep.
And that changes what comes in on baseboard. Go ahead, Deanna. I'm sorry.
I was agreeing with you. Also, sometimes having done a lot of asset identification and receiving it, you may not be able to read the barcode. We've been taking pictures with our phones and enlarging them, and sometimes the numbers do not look right. I mean, you can't sometimes tell an O from a 0. Oh.
Good point.
Okay.
Oh. See what I did there? Completely accidentally.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But that's one of because there's so much errors in that. If you're able to take a picture for AI, it may be able to read it better than we can. If your barcode's been scratched, your barcode's not going to work either. What if your gun loses its programming? Your bonding.
Well, this also helps the reconciliation, right? So let's put that in, right? we're talking about predictive lifecycle management, right? But this reconciliation is also extremely important to us because, again, what is helping us take action? What's helping us take other team members take action for that part? And for some reason, if you're not getting a response on LinkedIn or YouTube, apologize, I'm looking on the screen. I'm not saying a change happened with that. So we're working on that. But
I'm watching for chats too, so by all means, please do, if you're listening, put your location and your biggest pain point. This will give us stuff to talk about.
Because hopefully your vendor is giving you an ASN, an advanced shipping notice.
Mm-hmm.
And now they will know almost instantly, we received, here's the bill of lading, and we're expecting these serial numbers, but we got these serial numbers instead.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Okay.
Because that's an issue of accuracy at the vendor too. And if you've got that kind of a problem, you've got to pull that in for your annual evaluation of the vendor.
Yep. Yes. Vendor performance. Yep.
And keep in mind, some individuals may say, "How's that predictive?" As far as from the reconciliation. Well,
Trust in your vendor.
Well, it's not just trust, right? We're looking at asset registry, ASN discovery. Maybe you have it different. Maybe it's code finance too. It depends upon how many sources you have. But that reconciliation from a predictive perspective helps you predict to say, here's the problems we're about to run into that we don't realize.
Yeah.
And that's extremely important. So I want to make sure we put in context around when we put some of these examples in, and I want to just better articulate that because it's important for you to we need to be forward thinkers, because what happens to us as an individual is we become part of the strategic arm for the organization here. We're no longer performing the reconciliation. We're no longer trying to find an asset change. Yeah, we have some human element. You can still need to look and say, here's the reports, look at that. So you still have the human element, but not as intense, right? It's a higher level of thinking. So I just want to put that out there because, again, how can reconciliation be predictive? Okay, if I know something's coming in, I know from the procurement record, here's the serial number I'm supposed to see. I did a receipt and that serial number doesn't exist. Why? But I just got an invoice on it. Okay, right?
Yeah, you'll know whether or not to add it.
And there's lots of use cases we can put behind this too, a lot, right? You may say, oh, that's operational, that's for ITSM to work out. No, this is an asset management activity, right?
It can also give you a reliable chain of custody between going from the time you received it to the time it goes through one person to the next person, or has to go back to getting fixed, break fix or not. And then in disposal, it could actually give you a full history of from the time the product got in the door and the time it was disposed.
Everything. Just talk about using blockchain for that.
Yep.
Yeah, no, this is great because this is exactly what we want to think about with asset management, is how we think outside the box. Now, we may say, because honestly, what I've been saying is AI is going to eliminate jobs. I have consternation over saying that.
Yeah.
Because asset management will still be around. We're just a different level of talking and speaking. And maybe and trust me, I've worked for outsourcing organizations where they're offshore based, et cetera. And you're right, there are some tedious things that make mistakes, absolutely. And some of those roles are going to be replaced. And so it's being able to help better educate them. But even for those individuals, and I've talked with some of them, that's what they've done for like 7-8 years, receiving how do you put it out there? They didn't realize they're doing the entire life cycle. I mean, I have full sessions on that. It's right on me. It opened my eyes too. I didn't realize some of that stuff was happening. But what it also allowed me to understand was, okay, to me, that's all automated. It's been automated for 20 plus years, right? And for other individuals, it's not. So it also helps you from a level of maturity inside the organization for asset management, or even software asset management, or even configuration management. It helps raise the level of data and acceptance you're going to have. Okay, so disposal, reconciliation, operation, great. We talked about discovery, talking about some of the gaps, predictive analytics, right? Maybe there's something that came with a different model right? You say, okay, for some reason there's a patch that needs to be put out for BIOS or something like that. You're also helping predictive analytics, depending on how you're tying with other teams, with your deployment team, right?
Yep.
With those that are actually working to doing software updates. Because we've been talking about software, hardware here, right? Either way, we help with some of those analytics. Are we trying to take on that role? No. We are. Our plates are already full. But when I think about things like that, what else comes to mind? I mean, we're in the last 7 minutes already today, but this is great.
2 topics.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're talking about.
Reduction of human error.
Yeah.
Okay.
And proper processing of duplicative data or duplication.
Got it. What else comes to mind? This is great.
Mm.
For me, it's also about validating how you're looking at the data. Consistency, right? It's consistency. You have a very consistent approach. You don't have asset manager A, asset manager B, totally different parts of the organization looking at things completely different. Now, I'm not saying you may not have some different anomalies. That's great. But when it comes to the true asset and some of the attributes we're talking about, you have a lot of consistency across the board and you're using the same foundational data. Also, it goes with management data. So it's that consistency that also helps drive that, that honestly, we kind of overlook. We try to do that, but sometimes we can't get our arms around this animal. You know what I'm saying?
Missing data from important fields. AI can go scrub and tell us if we don't have an asset tag on something that needs an asset tag, or where more of the anomalies are.
It can surface that stuff, yeah. Any of those anomalies. So that's good.
And the point is on the missing data. Let's drill into that for a second as we're kind of here at the top of the hour, right? For those that are asset analysts today, you get, okay, we're working with the data, we're doing a lot of scrubbing, et cetera. All of a sudden, we have missing data. This allows them to evolve.
Yeah.
Allows them to be part of the data detective work, which is what we really enjoy with asset management, right?
Yeah.
When you become the data detective, now you're allowing them to understand other parts of the process and say, you know what, we have missing data here. Please further analyze this and tell me where it potentially could be. Or actually, what I love to do, it's also an enablement opportunity from the perspective of, I'm going to delegate you to contact these other users, the other stakeholders, to help identify where this missing data is coming from. Why is it the case?
Let's play with a workflow example for missing data, for instance, right? You know that this information at different stages of the life cycle are coming from various different places. At the order, like Deanna alluded to, if it's an off serial number or something different, and you know that your process enabled by AI can then identify to go back to that data as what should be the principal source. Identify errors, apply corrections, record that action, and then take a look at that process to see why was this missed? How was this missed? Was it the vendor's fault? Did we fail to key it in?
Right.
Did our AI process fail to capture that, right? So you can do that kind of stuff. And then any other data point along the way that may be missing from the record, figure out where does that normally come from, and then do that same chain that I just described. Examine the processes, determine the origin, determine the nature of the error, so that going forward, you've eliminated those errors.
Again, people say, and maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but I've seen a lot of things where AI is supposed to be eliminating jobs, right? I've been on this kick for probably close to a year, right?
Yeah.
And people say, well, we just don't need human interaction anymore. When you start going down the missing data, you look at consistency, absolutely. You're eliminating duplication. You actually absolutely should do that. But when you start looking to become more of that data detective, I'll be honest, that's where the fun is.
To the challenges.
And so the challenge.
It is. You got to look at it that way. So, well, I'm doing all the mundane stuff. That's not the mundane stuff. That's where the fun is. We're data nerds, right? We're data nerds. That's what we are. So now we're not just doing data nerds because we're the missing data. We're talking with people because realize we have a people problem. Asset management's not a data problem. It's partially a data problem, but it's not really a technology problem. It's a people problem, right? We don't collaborate. So when you start going down this path, you're able to further evolve. Now we're at the top of the hour. Gosh, it's amazing.
Here we are.
So, question for you. I'm going to put everybody on the spot, right?
Okay.
Do you want to have a follow-up to this? Want to do this? Continue on Monday?
Yeah, we could definitely do that. It's
So,
we're prepped up to talk about like 8 points, and we only covered 2.
Yeah.
But look at all the other ones we dug up. Yeah.
Well, it is. I mean, I'm loving this personally because it's providing that insight to say, okay, how else can you leverage AI in that part? Because I don't think we've not touched reporting. How can I actually create reports? And I'm not talking about, okay, yeah, I can do some of the spreadsheet, some of that, but actually help us with some of the analysis we may not think of, right?
Yeah.
Also provide that consistency for some of the output and some of the dashboard reports, right? We can talk about some of that on Monday because when we start talking about the grunt work is to nth degree. The last thing we want to do is have those manual reports, right? We may still have to create that Excel spreadsheet in a specific format because the executive likes it. Fine, that's our role, right? So we learn how to do Excel a little bit different, right? But when it comes to some of the other grunt work, as far as the data, some of the analytics, how we're working with that, how we're putting it across, still working on the different KPIs that we can bring into play that actually can help this. Let's further refine that. I think this was just the tip of the iceberg, right? Let's further refine that, do that on Monday, do that next step, and talk about, okay, here it is. Let's also talk about where this puts the practitioner, the analyst today. So I think that's another part that's important, right?
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure that the fear factor, and I was talking to some other colleagues the last day. For me, and the whole idea behind the ITAM Kitchen, as well as how you have the co-op, right? A lot of people deal with tech talk all the day. All the time with tech. That's great. And technology is what we deal with. I'm more concerned about the human element. That's where I sit, right? Here we're talking about different parts that have technology that actually help further address the human element. And I think on Monday, when we talk about the reports, how we're presenting with others, again, the human element, right? I think we also, let's also pull in, I'm setting my own agenda item here, right? Live. Danger, you shouldn't do that, but that's okay. It's the way it works. Let's also talk about the human element where these tasks that are being done by the analysts today, say, well, they may not have a role. I think they absolutely do.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how that evolves in the world. If we got time, we can make that happen. Otherwise, we have a third session.
That's a good extension right there. We could talk about a workflow process for that and trying to determine times with and without AI, because that's useful information.
I think it's really critical. So as we wrap up what we're talking about today, Deanna, I'm going to kick off with any type of wrap up comments for today, and then we can continue on Monday.
Yeah, one of the other things I just want to add is the ETL function, extract, transform, and load. We spend hours doing that.
Great point.
Trying to match the different spreadsheets back and forth. This is where your federated databases come in.
And trust me, there are technologies that are big names out there that do this horribly.
Yes.
It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
I was better off with tools 25 years ago than I am some of the new stuff today.
Yeah.
So we got that. AI can help with that.
Yes. AI.
Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, the biggest one for me, for instance, is AI is still in its infancy. We understand approximately what the error rate is and the kind of work you're going to need to do to back up and to quality check anything that you're going to leverage AI against in order to help to make those decisions. You're using it to be more efficient, but you're also using it to drive greater efficiencies elsewhere, right? So it's really, really important, right, that when you do this, you sit down with other stakeholders, you have a good planning session, and you figure out how your organization wants to leverage AI in order to tackle the mundane tasks, the tasks that cost you the most, the tasks that are, well, I just already said mundane, boring, etc. But also to determine those tasks that give you great deals of value, but not without some great deal of human effort.
Right.
So if you leverage it this way, then you can get the maximum benefit out of it. And again, we're still just in the beginning of all of this. This is like, I couldn't even tell you with any accuracy how old this effort is, other than the fact, from the 40s going forward, right? But the most recent stuff started happening, I want to say it was in the 80s to current day, right? With the push to get this out into businesses really within the last like 5 to 10 years. Well, here it is, it's being used. Now you're gonna have to go back and look over how it's been used to determine the C's, as we've stated them earlier. And so this is just the beginning of a conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And with that, really appreciate everyone contributing today. This has been great. We're at the top of the hour. The thing I want to summarize with AI is don't be fearful of it. Embrace it. If you want to play with it, dabble with it, there's lots of opportunities to do that. There's lots of different ways you can look at that. So play with it. And you may already have it available to you. You may not inside your environment. And if you don't have an environment, literally do Google or something like that. And you have your private Gmail or Google address anyways. Or made your own version depending on which country you're in, right? Dabble with it. Look at it. Learn how it consumes information. They're all going to be a little bit different. There's a little bit different variety to them. That's okay.
Sure.
But being able to say, I need to start working with it and embracing it. And I say embracing because, again, how do you want to leverage it? Think about freeing that mind a little bit. Think about how you can be more strategic to raise your own level of understanding. I'll also give you insight, right? If you're doing this stuff manually today as an asset analyst, I applaud you for doing it. Absolutely. What I want you to challenge you with is now think about how these tasks, if you're doing analytics, right, how it can be done with AI. Once you understand that and how that works, then you're able to raise your own level of thinking to be more strategic. It's the opportunity to think about. With that, I gave you something to think about for the weekend. We're on a Friday afternoon, but you have yourself a great weekend. Really do appreciate everyone being here. Deanna, Rob, as always, it's been a pleasure. We always have a great time talking and further evolving this conversation. It's really very powerful on several fronts. And we'll continue the discussion on Monday, and on Tuesday, we're going to go back to, we're going to work more in the role, right? In the treasure map and further refine that. So some of the topics further coming. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe we're almost to the end of February. Can you believe that? But you have yourself a great weekend, and we will talk again soon.
Thanks, everybody. Happy Friday. Like
Happy
and share.
Friday. Enjoy.
Like, share, subscribe.